All right, anger at the gates, logic and liberty and the line. So this is a interesting topic for many people here, because literally, here's the core is that anger is not evil itself. That's important. Like the emotion of anger is not evil. It's actually kind of like an alert system. It's a signal, not a command. But what it reveals, depending on what law we're operating under, when I say law, what I mean is design law. I mean the structure of reality itself. Okay, not law like legalistic law. And so, is our anger a reaction to the real design law violation or ego, pride, or control? And what's happening in the world right now is literally is that people are reacting to anger, uh, having anger because of what's happening, but instead of actually the violation of our liberties being taken away or people ending people's lives and assassinations, etc. That's a appropriate response given when design law is violated, design law reality. And so inherently there are two kingdoms of anger. One is God, design law, God's kingdom. Okay, it is normal when we see life get taken. Like for example, there's that girl in the bus the other day who was stabbed for no reason whatsoever. That's normal to have the experience of anger in that moment because it's a violation of God's design law, liberty. Her liberty was taken away. Her life was taken away, and that happened. So therefore, the appropriate response would be anger, and it's anchored in self-control. It rises in defense of others. I felt if I was there, how could you not do something in that moment? I was having a conversation with a friend. If we were in that bus, how could you not do something? But yet, many people, it's a human biological response to freeze. That's okay. It is what it is. But yet, if you have the wherewithal to do something about it, that is protection. That is a righteous. That is actually anger in design law. Whereas imposed law, this is the other one, to seek punishment. Right now, there's a lot of people seeking punishment for what happened. That's a counterfeit. That's a counterfeit. That person should die because of punishment versus actually protecting the mission. That's different. This is fueled by pride, fear, and revenge. Ultimately, let's look at the scriptures. Be angry and do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your wrath. And so, anger is permitted, sin is not. There is a time limit, a boundary, a moral line. And so, does our anger dissolve into forgiveness or harden us into acquisition? I know I've been guilty where sometimes it can harden me to acquisition versus actually just literally just moving into forgiveness. Our God died on the cross and he forgave. He even wept for Judas. He even wept for Judas as well. So at the temple, Jesus overturned all those tables. When it was almost time for the Jewish Passover, Jesus went up to Jerusalem in the temple courts and he found people selling cattle, sheep, and doves, and others were sitting at tables exchanging money. So he made a whip out of the cords and drove all of them from the temple courts, both sheep and cattle. He scattered the coins of money and the money changers, and he overturned their tables. That is a violation of design law. That's anger. He wasn't out of control. He was clear. In fact, this was not an emotional explosion. It was measured as an act of justice driven by actual clarity. It was anchored in purpose, aligned with truth. So ultimately, there are three fires that we must watch within us. Number one, the flash fire, emotive, impulsive, damaging. This is a very dangerous emotion, unchecked. It's a fire unchecked. I used to have this as well. I still have it at times, but as I've learned to create a pause, I no longer let that be the driver. Then there's a signal. It reveals the truth. Oh, it sets a boundary. Hey, that girl on the bus, that's a boundary. That's a violation. Of course I'm going to get angry about that. And then there's refiner's fire. Purifies the motives, drives righteous change. Then we act from number three. When we feel the heat rise, which is normal, when we feel that heat, what kind of fire is this? Well, it usually starts with flash fire. That's not something you want to derive. Just breathe, move through it. And then let it be a signal fire, and then refiner's fire. And we take action from a refiner's fire to protect the mission. So oftentimes, when Moses raised his arm and struck the rock twice, with his staff. Water gushed out, but the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, because you did not trust me in enough to honor me as the holy in the sight of the Israelites, you will not bring this community into the land I gave them. Clear. Moses acted in frustration. His anger disconnected from design trust. The result of this, the consequence, was misrepresentation and consequence. So Cain and the warning. Here's an example of it. When the fire goes unchecked, the Lord said to Cain, why are you angry? Why is your face downcast? If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it. God doesn't rebuke, he reasons. But Cain ignored the counsel, and anger becomes his actual murder. Am I reasoning with God or wrestling for control? That's a question. Sometimes I'm wrestling for control instead of reasoning with God. You know, right now there's a lot of things on the table around death penalty for certain things like that. But basically, are you wrestling with control or reasoning? And I assert we must be reasoning right now. So in the scripture, my dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry, because human anger does not produce the righteousness that God desires. It's that pause. And that's why it's important to rewire our nervous system in a way where that our heart rate doesn't go above 175, so we lose our logic and reasoning, and then ultimately our anger is usually something that can be destructive. Anger may expose injustice, but it cannot fulfill righteousness. It must surrender to reasoning. But yet, once our heart rate goes above 175, we lose our logic and reasoning. So therefore, it's important to be able to calm our nervous system, our heart rate, and that's where the breath comes in. So before we act, what outcome do you want? Before we act on anger, ask us. Oftentimes, I'll get angry, and it's just simple. It's like, but I forget what I want. Well, if I get angry right now and I lose control with my language, how I speak, am I going to get the outcome I want? Usually, it's no. What law or truth is being defended? Am I defending design law or some law that's human made? Does this protect freedom or seek control? Often my anger can be about seeking control instead of actually protecting freedom. What does your anger generally want? Usually it's self-preservation for human beings. So we got to build this habit. This is a muscle. What outcome? Is it about love and liberty and truth, or is it protecting freedom or seeking control? So here's how we respond to it. Here's the drill. When we get triggered, it activates the parasympathetic nervous reset. We want to breathe for 6 seconds. And that is that moment as well. Bring your shoulders back, eyes steady. What would clarity do? So in that moment, instead of what do I want to do, it's what would clarity do? How would Christ respond? Better a patient person than a warrior. One with self-control than one who takes a city. So there's two patterns. Jesus, anger aligned to purpose, protection of design. That's what it's all about. We need to protect the design of reality itself that our God created, a God of love, liberty, and truth. The other one, sword drawn in fear, cut off a man's ear. We get to choose every moment. Truth defends without control. Fear always escalates control. Plain and simple. And this brings us to what's actually starting to potentially happen in the world right now. Fear is escalating control. And so, now the Lord is the Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. Righteous anger never violates liberty. Be clear. If coercion shows up, the kingdom is counterfeit. So, logic, before we speak, am I protecting, not punishing? Is this aligned with truth and love? Is this for restoration? That means healing, not retaliation. Will this preserve the freedom of all involved? When the fire does rise within us, we don't suppress it, we sanctify it. We align with love, clarity, and design, and we act from pride. We never act from pride, only from the truth. And that's important as we navigate these challenging times, which, by the way, will continually design to create emotional outrage.